Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Wednesday webinar. We have a few more people joining, so just give us a few minutes and we'll get everybody in the meeting. So we'll start in about a minute. All right, happy Wednesday, everyone. It's Leslie Bainus with the Community Foundation. So we appreciate everybody coming. I know that life looks much different, but today is especially one of those days, as we should have been kicking off the official Amazing Give in 4 hours from now on today. So I know we're all missing that, but the relief page is doing really well. We're about to hit $200,000 raised in that relief page, which is awesome. And so please remember too that the Community Foundation is covering fees. So that GiveGab fee and your credit card fees will be covered until June 1st by the Community Foundation. So please use your page as many of you are. If you have questions or need help on how to restructure your page, please reach out. We're happy to help with that. And quickly for today, our webinar, we are going to be talking about the updated needs assessment. Thank you all for filling that out. We had 84 responses to that, so we appreciate everyone taking the time to fill out the needs assessment. And we're going to continue providing those assessments every few weeks, but we wanted to share those results with you today. And then we'll share some conclusions and next steps. We're going to talk about fundraising during a crisis, probably the one question we are getting the most about what should we be doing. So we have some tips, and then we'll hear from some of your peers. That way you'll be able to see that some of the things that we talk about are happening right here in our community. And then we'll just have an open discussion and ask your questions for any of the panelists that we're going to have today. So first I'm going to turn it over to Barzella so that we can go through the nonprofit needs assessment and what that looks like. So all of you guys are muted. This is a recorded webinar. So let Barzella in and let her unmute her. Barzella, are you with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can. So I'll turn it over to you and we will get started on the assessment.
Okay, so you're going to be in charge of advancing slides, correct, Leslie?
Yes, I'm ready.
Awesome. Okay, all right, well, thank you everyone for joining us today, and we're really excited to share with you some of the results from the nonprofit assessment that we've done. As you all recall, we did this about 4 weeks ago. We just finished it on what it looks like a month later, and we definitely intend to continue doing this as long as necessary, but wanted to share with you some of the things that came out because we asked some different things this time around. You'll see here who completed the assessment. By far, human services organizations, followed by education and youth services. As Leslie's already mentioned, we had 84 nonprofits to complete the assessment with about a 56% assessment retention rate. So we are trying to track who's completing it each time. It makes it a lot easier and the information a little more accurate if we can get repeats to complete the surveys. But at this point, we're at about 56%. I thought this was kind of interesting here. We ask about operating budget size, and you'll see that the top two really are the organizations that had about $50,000 to $250,000 annual operating budgets, and 25% came from the nonprofits that have over $1 million operating budgets. So we were really excited to be able to see both ends of the spectrum and get an idea of the sizes that were responding to the assessment. We asked the question, what was your sustainability based on what you have on hand right now without having to dip into reserves? This was a new question that was not included in the first one. And you'll see there, 34%, the most, reported that they have 1 to 3 months worth of cash on hand, with 25% having 6 to 12 months. So for us, this was pretty positive, that a number of organizations, well over half, have at least 1 to 3 or 6 to 12 months of cash available. This was one of that we feel was very promising. We had asked in the first assessment how much operating reserves that organizations had, and we asked that again. And you'll see here, it was kind of interesting, some of the changes. You'll see here we had a drop in the number of organizations, a 40% drop that said no reserves. So it went from 25% of the respondents last month having no reserves to 15% this time. You also see that pattern continue in the 1 to 3 months of cash reserves. That decreased as well. It went from 38% to 35%. Now I added a footnote over to the current assessment. 10% in that 1 to 3 months, 10% of that 35% reported that they have less than 4 weeks. But you see that we were able to increase the number of organizations that had 3 to 6 months of operating reserves. That number increased from 21% to 33%, and also the 6 to 12 month increased. The only other decrease that we saw that was a negative was more than a year, dropped from 10% to 7%. So this was at least pretty positive, not quite as grim as 4 weeks ago, that especially being able to shrink the no reserves. This was another positive reported a month later. 51% of the respondents said that they plan to pay staff for the time off or their fewer hours. In parentheses, that was the response of 4 weeks ago, when only 32% had intended to pay for staff. No was still holding steady, pretty much 26% versus 25% a month ago. And the number that was undetermined, we've been able to that has decreased from 44% to 23%. So again, another positive coming out of this second assessment. This was an interesting one that we added, and I imagine this will be of interest to many nonprofits in our community. We wanted to ask and find out who was applying for federal aid. So we asked what type of assistance that they were seeking, and you'll see here that 63% of our respondents applied for the Payroll Protection Program. 3% applied for the Florida Bridge loan, 24% didn't apply for any kind of relief funding, and 10% said that they did not qualify for anything. But as you see there, overwhelming majority did say or reported that they applied for PPP, which now we know has run out of money, along with the Florida Bridge loan. However, we're all keeping our fingers crossed that we see additional funding coming into that. So we decided to do a little bit of a deeper dive, because when we rolled out with this assessment is really when all of this came to light. So it was kind of hard to gauge who had gotten approved, who had gotten funded. So we decided to go back and go ahead to the next slide, Leslie. And we did a deeper dive because we wanted to take a closer look for the results of the Payroll Protection Program in particular. So what we did out of the those who responded that they applied, we looked at the respondents that had low cash reserves and had less than 6 months of operating money, and we followed up with them. We contacted them all individually to say, do you know whether or not you got it? Or do you know if you were denied, or where are you in the process? So as you see here, for the ones that we've been able to follow up with, 8 responded that they applied and received it, while 6 had applied and they knew that they had been denied. 5 reported that they had applied and results were still pending. So we're going to be closely monitoring this. We're also going to go back to all the organizations that reported that they applied, so we can at least try to keep tabs on at least how much of the federal support dollars are coming into our nonprofit sector here locally. A lot of response on this seemed to be, one trend that we noticed was the organizations that used community-based banks, local banks, or had a really great working relationship with their local banker, there seems to be a higher success rate with that. So again, these are just things that we are noticing as we are tracking this. And I want to thank those that did respond and they were honest with us about it. We are not sharing this information with anyone else. We're not sharing it with other funders, and this will not be taken into consideration when we are doing our funding decisions as well. So again, thank you for sharing that information with us. We ask actually two questions. One, I didn't include in this because I was keeping this as short as possible, but we ask about operational ramifications, and then we also ask financial ramifications. And we're taking a lot of this information that you are reporting to us, and this is what's helping us develop our Wednesday webinars and content and delivering things that you need. And not surprising, 66% of the respondents are reporting reduced individual donations and 68% cancellation of their fundraising events. So here we are today. We're going to be talking about fundraising during this because those two were by far the majority are experiencing those ramifications. Go ahead. We asked for what the projected decrease in revenue and their operating revenue between February and June, and there was quite a range, anywhere from 15,000 up to 200,000. But the estimated average loss in revenue from everyone who responded to this was averaging $60,000. So that's a significant hit that we are feeling in that 4-month period. Once again, we ask the level of impact on programs and services, and holding steady, just like 4 weeks ago, everyone is reporting a significant level of impact in both their programs and services. Only 1% saying no impact. So this number stayed pretty constant from the first assessment. Immediate concerns, obviously, number one was client needs and being able to deliver to the clients and keep their service levels. Right behind with canceled services, followed by fundraising, funding, which again is driving why we're here today. There was a quote pulled. We asked for a lot of feedback and we got a lot of great feedback. And I know this is going to be shared with you all after the webinar. We'll give you a link to some of the advice and tips that were shared by everyone. But pretty much the consensus was the ability to continue to meet current needs and increase demands for services and assistance in the long term. So that's kind of what everyone from the field was reporting. So there's a lot more data, and we're happy to share with you the link for everything. But just wanted to give you a couple of the conclusions that we saw from this, some trends, and then some takeaways. Overall, the response was very positive. There was definitely a shift from the first assessment to this one, from we might not make it to wow, we look different and it's working, and more questioning what we're going to look like as we move forward. What's fundraising going to look like? What programs are going to look like? But it definitely seemed to be a more positive tone. There was definitely a little bit of a less of concern about immediate funding and fundraising. We believe that the government aid did help. We spoke with a number of organizations that were on the verge of having to lay off 20 to 30 staff members to, okay, we're fine now. We can take a breath and start exploring other options. So the one comment was that, you know, operations are lean, everyone's still adjusting. And there seems to be a shift in the focus instead of immediate funding to long-term future fundraising and how to communicate with donors. And then the other thing that we noticed was funding needs are not what necessarily they thought that they might be. So what was an issue 4 weeks ago is definitely not an issue now. And we think this is going to continue. This is definitely a moving target, changing on a weekly basis. But definitely there's talk about being able to maintain and sustain your operations. And then, as I said, needs are changing. So how do we address those needs? And then in concluding, also a couple of predictions. We definitely are seeing a shift with risk assessments. We're seeing nonprofits, they're having to have difficult conversations about what their operations are going to look like. No, there's this thing called the dependency quotient. And that basically it's a measure that nonprofits need to answer. The question is, if you lose your top 5 donors, what would that leave your organization looking like? And unfortunately, we've all been kind of thrown into that with this pandemic. So risk assessment, risk mitigation, I think we're going to see a lot more organizations really taking that seriously, and boards and their governance roles definitely trying to assess and minimize the amount of risk that organizations are taking. We're also seeing a shift in capacity building. That was a lot of the feedback that organizations are going to be looking differently. They're going to need, if they don't have a strategic plan in place, they're going to probably be getting those in place, or at least we see a lot of a trend of developing future disaster relief policies, procedures, remote working policies and procedures. So there's definitely going to be more of a focus on capacity building as we move forward. And then finally, obviously, fundraising. There's going to definitely be a shift from what we know as fundraising and our traditional events to an increase in online and using the tools that are available, and how to manage and how to maintain and how to develop those donor relationships in this kind of crazy new norm that we're in. So those were a couple of the takeaways that I wanted to share. Next steps for us, please, please, please be using the needs request form. I know we get a little confused. We have the needs assessment we're doing, but we also have a short little 2-page needs request form. It's on the foundation's website. This, you can request funding, you can do request resources. We are gathering those, we are sharing them with our fund holders, we're sharing them with other funders as well. We are trying to meet some of those requests if we can. So please, you know, we don't know what your needs are unless it's brought to our attention. So we're strongly encouraging everyone to use the needs request form. We also will continue to do another assessment. We'll do it probably 4 weeks from now, so that we can just monitor our sector as a whole and provide the support that you need. And the one thing we're going to be doing, we're still going to be doing the Wednesday webinars. We'll probably be moving those to every 2 weeks in the coming months. But in the meantime, we're going to begin organizing small focus groups. We want to hear one-on-one in small group, obviously virtual settings. And we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. We're going to be dividing our focus groups up. This is actually a great, this was a great article that came from this firm, Sea Change. And Sea Change is a national organization that specializes in risk management, mitigation, and assessment for nonprofits. And we'll send you the link to this article, but basically what they are saying is they are seeing 3 types of organizations emerge during this COVID-19 crisis in the nonprofit sector. We have our responders, we have hybrids, and we have hibernators. And so what we're going to be doing at the foundation is having small gatherings, focus groups, so that we can hear from you and what your needs are. Because as you see here, the responders, those are the organizations that are seeing their demand for programs has significantly increased directly because of COVID. Those can include health clinics, homeless shelters, food pantries, also residential facilities for the developmentally disabled. Hybrids are kind of the go-between. These are a little more challenging. Hybrids are organizations that offer programs that can be provided to some degree despite COVID-19, but they're not directly related to reducing the spread. So these include advocacy groups, workforce training, so reentry programs for the formerly incarcerated. And then finally, the third group are the hibernators. So these are the organizations that have been really shut down during this crisis, or they're having to reinvent themselves. So, you know, arts groups, arts and culture, after school programs, if there's suddenly no students that can come, hibernators have had to completely shift. So we're happy to send this article to you because there's some great strategies in there for what you can be doing as far as risk mitigation, depending on where your organization falls in these 3 types. But we're going to be holding focus groups around this. We're going to be starting this Friday. We put together a really small group of the organizations that were reporting operating budgets of over $1 million, because we want to hear what their current needs are and what this recovery effort's going to look like. So definitely stay tuned to that. All right, next slide. So let's get to the topic at hand today, and we'll talk about a couple of fundraising tips, and then I'm gonna fly through this and get it over to the experts in the field so you can hear directly from them. It's very important right now that you stay in touch with your donors. Obviously, if you're a responding organization, you're going to have definitely a different message for your donor base. But even if you're not, now is not the time to say nothing. Now is not the time to be silent. Talk to your donors about how this is impacting your organization. But when you say that, the next thing is be mindful of your messaging. If you're not a responder organization, and that's fine. We all have to kind of pick where we are and what organization and be respectful for those responders, but be mindful of your messaging. There was a great tip that I heard earlier this week in a board source meeting, and it was about what do you put on social media? What should your message be in social media? And basically they said, bounce it off somebody before you post it to social media and see what the response or the feedback is that you get. So do be mindful of your messaging because you definitely don't want to take away from those responder organizations, but at the same time, you do want to be in communication with your donor base. So, share with them the needs of your clients and again, how the crisis is impacting your clients and your operation. As I mentioned before, now's not the time to have philosophical discussions about your development plans. The board needs to really, they need to know. They need to know what's reasonable, and now is not the time to just hope for the best. It's time to be realistic, and it's time to be reasonable about your fundraising expectations. So it's not the time to sit and go, oh, well, what if this, what if that? You really need to plan for, the best and the worst case scenarios. Be sure to combine your written communication along with your email campaigns. Don't forget the power of the written word as well. And most importantly, don't forget to thank your donors. And I know at the end, Leslie's going to share a couple of samples that we have seen that are very creative. So we'll be sharing that toward the end. Next. The big trend now is everyone's taking their event virtual. And that's great. It's actually a really good fundraising tool that really, I'm hoping that a lot of organizations will look at this as an ongoing year-round option and not just a plan B when there's a state of emergency or terrible weather. Virtual fundraising events can, there's a lot of flexibility with it. It can be live streamed, or you can do it in advance and upload it. And one really great thing about it is, instead of a 2-hour lunchtime event, a virtual event can last over a period of days. So you can have it where people can come in at a time that is live, or they can engage in their own time, and you can really expand your outreach. So I hope that those of you who are thinking about virtual events, this is a time to really get excited and really get creative about the potential for what you can do. I was in a meeting with a group yesterday that they have had a long standing lunchtime fundraising event. So predictable. It's been the same thing at the Hilton. And, now they're not going to be able to do it. They're going to have to move virtually. And there was a little bit of panic and fear of the uncertain and the unknown. But it's really, it's a neat time that you can get creative and just think of how you can expand and push the boundaries. One thing that I got very excited about is to move this virtually. It's not going to cost as much as it would if we had the event at the Hilton. So they're incredibly cost effective. And I think at the end of the day, this group's going to be very pleased about what they're going to net from the event, moving it to a virtual base. So just keep that in mind. There's a lot of platforms. There's a lot of great things you can do. You're going to hear from some folks in the field here who are going down that road. And then at the end, we have a couple of tips to share for your virtual events as well. And go ahead, Leslie. And I'm going to turn it over to Leslie now, because the other big trend we're seeing now that we're moving virtual is the power of peer-to-peer fundraising. And she is the local expert on this. So I'm going to turn it over to Leslie to discuss how important this is in your fundraising kit.
Thanks, Barzella, and thank you to David from our office has been posting all of the links in the chat. So if you haven't seen the chat yet, you can go find all the links of the things that Barzella discussed. So quickly, peer-to-peer fundraising, those that don't know what it means, we do it all the time without even realizing that we're doing it. And peer-to-peer fundraising is, I put the official definition of social and team personal fundraising methods in which your supporters fundraise on your behalf. Amazing Give is probably the best way that many of you use peer-to-peer fundraising. It's a great way to do it. I always say people are fundraising and they don't even realize it when they're posting the link on their social media page and asking their friends to donate. They're doing peer-to-peer. So some advantages are it builds current donor relationships. At this time, it gives you an opportunity to reach out to your donors and ask them for something other than money. Right now, you might be asking them for money in one thing, but another way to reach out to them is to ask them for support. You can help us by sharing on social media, encouraging your friends, creating a page on the Amazing Give. They can create a peer-to-peer page on Amazing Give. It's other ways they can help. And so it helps build current relationships. It definitely helps them feel useful at a time where some people feel like they want to do more but don't know how to help. Boosting new donors. So the best way to find new donors is connections. And then it helps raise money quickly. On the Amazing Give page, for the past 4 years, we've been tracking peer-to-peer fundraising, and those organizations that use the peer-to-peer aspect where someone creates their own peer-to-peer page and they're sharing that page out with everyone, those organizations that have at least 2 peer-to-peer fundraisers are raising 4 times more money than the organizations that are not using peer-to-peer, because ultimately they're reaching out to their friends and their relatives and family and contacts and networking groups that are supporting because they support that person. And then it helps you recruit those new donors to spread your message and increase awareness about your organization. Of course, we'd love everyone to use the Amazing Give page, but peer-to-peer can definitely extend much past that. Social media, there's the Facebook fundraisers, which is a great way. We see people using it for their birthdays or different milestone events in their life, or just simply creating a fundraiser. You can also use email. And a lot of people say, well, I can't do peer-to-peer because I don't have social media. Well, you can still, peer-to-peer fundraising, you could still text, you can still email. And then the next question we always get is, how do I find who can be my peer-to-peers? You start with your board members. A lot of board members, what we hear a lot is they're too afraid to ask for money. This is a very simple way, and a lot of times they don't even realize that's what they're doing when they're sharing out links and helping build those connections. Use your volunteers, your staff. It's a great way for staff to feel like they're helping the fundraising department or fundraising team or fundraising person. And then your monthly givers. I know a lot of you have monthly giving programs. Reach out to them and ask them, you give, but help us share why you give and explain. So peer-to-peer fundraising, I could do a 2-hour presentation on peer-to-peer fundraising, but we'll stop there and move on to our next section. So we wanted to hear from our local peers. I know that a lot of you have been asking us questions about what does fundraising look like, what should we do? So I thought it might be good to hear from stories going on right here in our community. So during this section, I'm going to unmute the person who's going to talk, and then we're going to just go into an open discussion where I'm going to unmute everybody after they talk, and we'll be able to have much more of a discussion. So each one of them have about 2 to 3 minutes prepared for to talk about their organization. So we're going to start with JT from Grace Marketplace. So JT, you're unmuted. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Awesome. So really excited to be chatting today about our success at Grace with emergency relief fundraising. This whole thing kind of started for us the day that we announced, how we were going to respond to COVID-19 and what our organization was doing to continue serving the homeless population. And we, in that first email that went out, the first couple of posts that we put on social media, we just put a link in to support our organization by making a donation. And that was an early indicator to us. The response that we got from that was an early indicator to us that our people were really ready to help. They were standing by, ready to do whatever we needed to do. So we took some time to, we took a couple days to think about what our next steps were going to be. And it was around the same time that the Amazing Give was repurposed into emergency relief. So we took that opportunity to kind of pivot our mid-year campaign and go from what we had planned on being a birthday celebration, celebrating the 6th year that Grace has been in existence, to, right now, how can you be safe in a home if you don't have a home? So really working on that messaging that Barzella was talking about. And the biggest thing I think is not rushing into it. We didn't rush into just doing it to do it. We sat down, we thought about making a plan. So that's a big piece of advice that I would pass on. And we incorporated it into something that we were already planning on doing, which is our mid-year. So we have stuff up on the Amazing Give emergency relief site. We're getting ready to put out probably about a 700 piece mailing to our donors who haven't given at all this year, but have given in some years. And we really, I would say our success came from building on current relationships that we have. We were able to get about $20,000 in matching funds. Initially it was 15, and then we found out yesterday that we have another donor that stepped up and giving us $5,000. And almost every one of our matching funds come from a donor that we had a relationship with, or a relationship that was ripe for the picking. So really looking at when you're talking about establishing a matching fund, looking at your donor base and seeing who is involved in volunteering, who's come to your organization to volunteer, who have you talked to over the past year about getting involved. Those are all things that we took a look at when we were calling folks to talk about matching funds. And then finally, this is going to be a way for us to re-engage our volunteers. We're going to use peer-to-peer fundraising as a way to re-engage our volunteer groups, most of which have been reaching out asking how they can help. So this is going to be a really easy way for us to re-engage them. Leslie, did I touch on all the points that you wanted me to touch on?
Yeah, that was great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So I will leave you on, JT, but we're going to move on to Margot. And so Margot is with the Humane Society. So I'm looking forward now. All right, Margot, you're unmuted. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're all good.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me. So I'll echo a lot of what JT said. I think the biggest takeaway for us in fundraising in this new era has been trying to be as flexible and nimble as possible. So just shifting some of the things that we were already doing to help engage more people. So we had just finished our Amazing Give page. It was ready to launch and start publicizing basically the day everyone got put in quarantine. So we just, like JT said, pivoted slightly. We changed our messaging to be more towards those immediate needs and that the sort of emergency relief funding. So we created a video with our staff that was still available at our shelter to help talk about what our needs are right now and what our plans were for the organization. And we put that together pretty quickly and put that up on our Amazing Give page. Another thing that I think we did really successfully was we engaged both our board of directors and our volunteers to create 2 different matching funds. So the board came together first and they were able to collectively raise $1,600 for a match. And then we challenged our volunteers to try to beat our board. And so we called that the Share Why You Care campaign. And we sent it out to all of our volunteers and only volunteers in foster homes and asked them not only to consider giving towards this, beat the board match, but also sharing with us photos of them volunteering, photos of them fostering dogs and cats, and also quotes about why they care and why they volunteer for our organization. And then our staff and our interns from home put all that stuff together into some really nicely branded, nicely packaged social media posts and sent that back out to the volunteers along with our Amazing Give page to start sharing. So we really engaged that peer-to-peer group. We have over 1,000 active volunteers and we wanted to get as many of them involved as possible. And it's actually perfect timing because it's Volunteer Appreciation Week. And so we have a bunch of activities virtually going on for all of our volunteers this week. So they're extremely engaged at this time. And we want to kind of take that momentum and keep it going so that they can be our, best and biggest fundraisers out in the community at this time. And then I sort of relied on the advice of some of my peers in the Development Affinity group for this last piece. We had planned to do a spring mailer because it is kitten season and it was already in the works. It was already designed. And I was just a little hesitant to pull the trigger, not knowing if it was the right time. And I got unanimous feedback: do it, send it, do it right now. So it's at the mailer right now. It's at the print house, I should say. And we're sending out over 13,000 pieces. It's a very inexpensive mailer. It's just a postcard, but it talks about what our current needs are and the fact that kind of kitten season stops for no one. So it doesn't matter if there's a virus or if we're all homebound, there are still kittens being born, and they still need a safe place to go. So, so that's sort of what we've done. Leslie, was there anything else in particular you wanted me to touch on?
I mean, I think we want to know how your volunteers are doing on Beat the Board Challenge.
So they raised about $1,300. Our volunteers did, and we had a volunteer roundtable on Zoom on Sunday afternoon, and we got the feedback that they wanted us to reopen the link. They weren't done fundraising, so we did that through our website, and then we were putting the match up on the Amazing Gift page once they had raised it through our website. And so that they asked us to open it back up, so money's still coming in. So they haven't quite beat the board yet, but I see by the end of this week they should. And we're going to be updating our match amount on the Amazing Gift page as they raise more money. And so it's great. It's really exciting. But they love all the social media. They love all of the items that we've created for them to be able to share, and they're coming up with fundraising ideas of their own. We have several volunteers who are busy sewing masks for our staff, and who also want to offer masks as an incentive for people to donate to the Humane Society. So if you donate, $10 to the Humane Society, then we'll send you one of these homemade masks.
That's so great. Thank you so much for sharing, Margot.
Thank you.
And Margot and JT are staying on the call too, so we can come back for questions. I know some of you had some questions. So next we're going to move on to Pay Center for Girls. So we have Becker with us. Becker, you should be unmuted. Can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Go ahead.
Awesome. So many of you may know that Friday would be the day that we would have the 21st annual Mary Wise Scramble benefiting Pay Center for Girls. And obviously that's not happening. And we were looking to create a virtual event and pivot, as I guess that's the new word, right? We were going to pivot from our old traditional tournament and try to do something virtually to help recapture some of the funding that's raised during that tournament. So we came up with a wonderful plan, and I'll share that with you in just a moment. We were going to launch it launch it on Friday, but since there's so much going on with fundraising right now, and particularly PACE is doing some organization-wide fundraising, we decided it might not be the best time, and so we're pushing this into the summer months. But basically, it's the objectives are to retain our sponsors and our participants, to create public awareness beyond just the people that attend the golf tournament, and obviously to supplement lost income. And it's basically a 2-week digital campaign to create a virtual competition. And it's called the Putt for Pace Challenge. Mary Wise is all on board with this. So she is the sponsor of our golf tournament, our celebrity sponsor, if you will. She's going to create a video, and Channel 4 is on board as one of our media sponsors, and they're going to help us promote it. And basically, it sort of mimics the Ice Bucket Challenge. You all remember that? And we are going to challenge people, especially when they're home, to create some sort of putting maze and share it with their friends. And it obviously, to be successful, we know that we have to sort of seed this. It's an online upload your video kind of a thing. We're going to seed it by getting people that are high profile in the community to be some of the first adopters and to really jumpstart the competition. It's going to last for 2 weeks. There's a lot of peer-to-peer fundraising. Volunteers can be used, the volunteers that we normally have at our golf tournament. We're going to hopefully have them participate in peer-to-peer fundraising, if not participate as a player, if you will. We're creating a dashboard that shows money coming in real time. We're asking some of our golf teams to create virtual teams and compete against one another. And those teams will be on our dashboard, if you will, and you'll be able to see in real time who's raising more money. So it's kind of peer-to-peer fundraising. But it's done sort of in real time as the teams reach out to their friends and fellow golfers. We're going to have a virtual 19th hole happy hour and auction at the end. So we're trying to just take some of the components of a golf tournament and see what we can do with them virtually. This obviously, the board and sponsor participation is critical. We think that the sort of bonus for our sponsors is being a sponsor in a digital community and for a digital event gives you a lot more bang for your buck than just signage at a golf tournament. So we're hoping that that's going to be attractive to them. We've got the media partners, we've got some influencers lined up. So we're just excited to see how this goes. And timing is everything, and that's really where we're struggling, trying to hit the sweet spot to launch this. So I'd love to have any ideas from any of you. Anything else, Leslie? Did I miss something?
That's great. I love your ideas. It's so creative. So, no, thank you for sharing. And Becker's going to be on the call too, so we can ask questions. We have one more presenter. So I wanted to unmute Deidre Dodd with Girls on the Run. So you are unmuted. Can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, you're good. Go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you for having me this afternoon. It's so great to hear from everybody and everybody's ingenuity on all of these ideas on fundraising. I just love it. So I'm with Girls on the Run. A little different than some of the other nonprofits. Girls on the Run has like a 10-week dedicated timeline program. So we are an after-school program, which was interesting because we could have been classified as a possible hibernator, but we were not. Thankfully, we did a complete shift and adaptation to what we had going on for an after-school program. Gracefully, we had kind of a week of spring break in there, right when all of the school closures were going on. So we had a few days in time to figure out how are we going to shift serving the girls if we cannot serve the girls after school as we typically do. So it was a very big transition for us. We were in our 10-week program, had just finished week 5 for the girls. And to those of you who don't know, at the end of the 10 weeks, we do host a 5K. It's community 5K. It gives the girls kind of a tangible sense of achievement when they cross the finish line. Our sayings is walk, skip, jump, hop. As long as they can finish that finish line, they've achieved their goal. And to be honest, that's kind of the mantra that we've been in for this past 5 weeks. No matter what we have to do, we really just want to finish our 10 weeks with the girls. So we did adapt the last 5 weeks of our programming to what we called Girls on the Run at Home. And so 2 sessions a week, the girls are given at-home activities to do with their family member. Some of them they can do on their own. Exercising, getting active, along with some of the other things that we incorporate in Girls on the Run: motivation, positivity, those kinds of things. So we did adapt those last 5 weeks into Girls on the Run at Home. And then importantly, we transitioned our physical 5K that we hold in the community to a virtual event. We all had to act on that very quickly. I'm sure in hindsight now, looking back, we could have done several things differently. But as we were on a timeline set, we did have our virtual 5K in April a couple weeks ago, and it was a really great success. I feel like it was a really great closure for the girls. We did go on and do some peer-to-peer fundraising with that. That proved to be fruitful for sure. The way we did that was through Facebook Live. This was a really great platform for us. Technology worked out. We worked out little kinks prior, but Facebook Live turned out to be a super great platform for us to host the virtual 5K. I loved seeing all of the live speakers that we had, so I created a schedule. We did only do it during one day. We didn't offer it over extended days. We just kind of transitioned our 5K date that was going to happen physically to the 5K date that we just transitioned to virtually. So we had a whole schedule that day regarding the virtual 5K. And what I loved most about the virtual 5K, that we engaged every single one of our board members to be a part of it. So everyone had a role, whether it was they were great at stretching beforehand, whether it was a healthy snack afterward, whether it was like, let's talk about what a running buddy is. So board engagement was super awesome. And then so far that is, they took that to their peer-to-peer fundraising as well. I think most importantly for us, the way that we've stayed aboard with everything through these past 10 weeks is that we've stayed connected with our girls. We make sure we reach out to the parents every week, encourage them to do these Girls on the Run home activities. This encourages the coaches as well to check in on their girls. While we don't really have authorization to have like a Zoom Girls on the Run team meeting, the coaches definitely are engaging with the girls and instrumental in that peer-to-peer fundraising as well. So yeah, we just wanted to stay connected with our girls and with teams over the past 10 weeks to maintain closure on our program. The girls crossed the finish line at their virtual 5K, and it was a really great morning. But it's on our Facebook Live if anybody wants to go see it.
Thank you for sharing, and thank you for the love the story about how you adapted. I know that a few weeks ago, I think last weekend, my husband and I were walking and we saw all the chalk signs chalking out through the neighborhoods, the Girls on the Run 5K. So that was definitely exciting, and congratulations on being able to adapt that so quickly with all the board engagement as well.
Thank you.
So we want to talk a little bit about some virtual examples. I'm going to unmute Barzella because I think she wanted to share here. Barzella, can you hear us?
You caught me eating a protein bar. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry. All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So, in wrapping up, there's just a couple of examples. There's a link here to GoFundMe. They have a great blog here. You'll see it. It's under the little fork and knife there for a couple of, there's some examples of virtual events, and they have a great just step-by-step, if you're considering doing one, just a great checklist to think about. But, as Deidre just mentioned, a 5K race or endurance race. Another thing we've seen are scavenger hunts, adoption drives, especially animal services. They can't have those in store right now. So putting up pictures, the adopt drive, food and supply drives have been very popular, going online, going virtually, bike rides. This is just a few of the examples that we've been seeing and we've been following. There was one yesterday that we were watching that was a virtual gala, and they had basically turned the website had videos, and each video would be your segment of the program. So the first one was, the opening address from the board chair, and the next was the video from it was kind of interesting. The entire flow of the website was just like what you would see if you were at a sit down event, with also a live auction component to that one that we were watching as well. They had set a goal, so they had the whole tracking bar at the top. Instead of tables, they used a peer-to-peer, but basically your tables were your table captains were your peer-to-peer fundraisers. So that one was a really neat one that I was watching out of Jacksonville yesterday. So just a couple of ideas there, but you can visit the site. And thank you, David, for sharing that link that anybody can go to. And there's great steps there and more suggestions. And then most importantly, don't forget to thank donors. That's the biggest thing right now, is to stay in touch with them. I think JT touched on it as well. In the beginning, reaching out to your donors, and Margot mentioned it, everybody did. Go ahead and click to the next one. Here was a cute little example that I saw they did down in Indian River, Vero Beach. They did just a virtual, instead of a donor wall, they did just this thank you in the sidewalk chalk, which is really cute. And I actually, after this got started, I just got an email from our development friend over at UF Health, and she sent me something that they had just drawn on the sidewalk, and it was really cute. And I think Ronald McDonald House had something last week where people had set up signs of encouragement as they were driving into the house for the parents that were staying there. But just it's a time to get really creative and thank them. And then I think the other one, Leslie, you can comment on this. This is a reveal.
Yeah, this was a reveal of how much money was raised during a virtual fundraiser. I think Dance Marathon did something similar. And it was just a cute video of thanking their donors in a very creative way, using their volunteers, using their staff, thanking donors. And I know another great way of thanking your donors, Barzell, you want to share about doing a drive?
Yeah, I think everybody has seen on social media if you were born and your birthday's in April or May or the end of March, you're just hosed. If you can't celebrate your birthday. So everybody's been doing drive-by birthday parades. So we actually are going to mimic that this Saturday. One of our major donors' birthday is Saturday. And so we've organized, and we're going to get our cars and make posters and some balloons and just have them come out and do a quick drive-by happy birthday. But you can also adopt that and make it a thank you as well. But just don't forget to thank them, and it's a time that you can get really creative with it. So I'll let you know how Saturday goes. If we may scare her off, but we're going to surprise her nonetheless on her birthday Saturday morning.
That's great. Thanks, Barzell. So I wanted to do a quick open discussion. We have about 10 minutes. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to unmute everyone. So please remute yourselves. You've all been unmuted, so please mute. But this way you can unmute yourself if you would like to talk, and we will share. If you want to share your video, you can unmute yourself and ask questions. All of our panelists today are still here. Barzell is on. So if you want to, hi everyone, if you want to go in and ask a question, please unmute yourself and talk. We have people type in, and so we can kick off with one question that was for some of the panelists, and feel free for anyone that wants to answer. But one of the things that came in online was, has there been any, we hear about all the positive reaction, but has there been any negative reaction to you fundraising during this time? Has anybody seen, maybe start with some of our panelists, any type of negative reaction for your outreach?
Not a bit.
Head shaken.
Not a bit. I think,
in fact, the opposite. I think we have seen, I did a comparison of our donations for this same time period last year. So I did March 1st to April 15th versus March 1st to April 15th of this year. And I saw a significant increase in donations. I actually physically went to the office yesterday to check voicemails. I had about 40 voicemails of people asking if we were taking donations. So I think people know, because everyone's been affected, people know that our nonprofit organizations are affected as well. They want to help whatever ways they can.
Thank you. I hope that's encouraging for those that have been hesitant about what to do, is that there really hasn't been a negative reaction. It's been quite the opposite. Does anybody have any questions they want to chime in?
I've had a lot of people, or sorry, this is Lindsay with Community Spring. Thank you all for this presentation. It was wonderful. I've had some questions from people about asking to donate their stimulus check. And I was wondering if anyone has had any experience sort of running a campaign around stimulus check donations.
Hi, could I jump in?
Sure.
This is Fran Ricardo. I'm with the Rural Women's Health Project. We're a nonprofit here in Gainesville, and we've had some wonderful donations. We have been working to serve primarily the Spanish-speaking immigrant community, as well as working with women living with HIV, and especially the immigrant families. Some of them, most of them, because they do not have papers, even though they've been here working, maybe some for 20, 25 years, will not be receiving stimulus checks, and also are being laid off because they're the ones that are working in the hotels and the fields. And so we have been asking for donations, not only us, but there's another organization, the Human Rights Coalition out of Alachua County, that has a group called Madres Sin Fronteras, and they have been running a program asking for at least a 10% donation from the stimulus checks. And we've been really fortunate. People have been sending us money as well so that we can help support the families in limiting the amount of money we give them, but enough to buy a little bit of food or pay rent or diapers, or especially meds with diabetes being a problem. Thank you.
Can I just ask a follow-up question to that, actually? It sounds like that's a direct cash transfer. Is that right?
We've been getting checks in the mail. We've also been getting PayPal has been working really well. We've been getting small donations really from around the country.
But then to your clients?
No, these are just people that know us and support our organization. People that go to different churches that we've worked with. We also are serving the farm workers that are here picking the blueberries that travel through, and a lot of them do not have face masks. So we've been ordering them, and we've also getting some today from Pegeen and her group. But people have also been helping make donations so that we can actually pay people to get the masks done quickly, so they've got some kind of safety, because a lot of them are living 4, 6, 8, 10 in a trailer or room, and we're really trying to protect them as best as we can.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
We've had a couple of people donate. It's really easy to tell when someone donates $1,200 because you know that that's the stimulus check. But we just put out a really simple graphic on our Facebook page. It's helpful that we have a match because we can we can use that to leverage more money. But I would suggest just figuring out what someone's stimulus check would pay for, and create some messaging around that, and just put the idea in people's heads. We got our stimulus checks, our stimulus deposit this morning, so the money's still continuing to go out. I would say the sooner you can get messaging out about that, the better.
Thanks, guys. Any more questions? Anybody have another question? We have a few more minutes. See if we have any.
I just want to reiterate, I was very hesitant, and I continue to, we were talking about our big fundraising event in November this morning, my executive director and I, and we have not made any decisions about that event yet, whether it's going to go forward or not, whether it's going to be in person or virtual. And we don't plan to make that decision today or tomorrow, which is good for my anxiety. But I will say, if you are feeling very hesitant, just know people want to give, people want to be supportive right now. In some cases, I know, Leslie, we've talked about this, in some cases, because we're at home, even though we might not have a lot to give normally in our lives, because we've been home for so long and we aren't going out and shopping and we aren't going out and eating and things like that, there may be even more disposable income that people want to kind of pay forward and help others who need their support. So if there's a single takeaway from today, it's don't hesitate to reach out. Now is the time to ask, because people will respond.
Quick question. I wanted to know if anyone used TikTok as a fundraising platform or for any of their virtual events.
Does anybody use TikTok?
We use TikTok at the Humane Society, but mostly for engagement and really cute videos of adoptable dogs and cats. We've not attempted to tie in any fundraising yet, but I would definitely ask our interns or someone younger and smarter than me to give it a shot.
That's great.
I'm learning too much about TikTok in my house. Sorry.
Our girls love TikTok. They do it all the time. We have little internal pace competitions.
That's great. Well, David actually just shared one more link in the chat I wanted to share. So we took this from one of our consulting friends, Stansberry Consulting up over in Tallahassee, and she has some great tips on some do's and don'ts during fundraising during COVID-19, and just about being sensitive and really thinking about what you're doing and being strategic. And so David shared that link. You'll copy it and you can paste that, and we'll make sure we send these links out too, where you can get some good do's and don'ts for fundraising at a time like this. So I wanted to thank you all for joining today. We've hit right at an hour now, so please, if you have any questions for any of our panelists, please reach out to me. I'm happy to put you in touch with them. I know any one of them would be willing to talk with you and happy to provide any additional thoughts or feedbacks or bounce ideas off of you. And so thank you all. Appreciate you joining us on, like I said earlier, on today of what would have been the Amazing Give, kicking off in 3 hours from now. So
Yay, we'll do it, and we can do it anyway.
Well, hopefully we'll be doing that
for fun.
Sure.
For fun and the spirit.
Yes, we'll be doing it in August. And so please keep fundraising on that page. Fill out the needs request form if your organization has some immediate needs or some long-term needs that you know. Please fill out that form. We're still making grants from that and sharing that with funders. So we will all be in touch soon. Thank you all, and look forward to seeing you next week. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you. Stay safe.
You too.